So, hi everyone. Over on Twitter, I decided to pose a question in which I said, do you guys want to hear my thoughts about Black Annie Twitter? Which, for those uninitiated, Black Annie Twitter is like Black Anime Twitter. Annie Twitter, of course, being the truncated version. Um, Here's the thing. I was a little shadier than expected in posting that. So I want to start this video by saying I'm not really here to name names. I'm not here to drag anyone. I'm not here to be inflammatory, but I do want to give my thoughts on this phenomenon because it's relatively new and recent for me. Because even though I've been an anime fan for approximately really 15 years, being a part of Black anime Twitter is very new for me. So I definitely do want to talk about that experience and what it's been like for me, especially coming into it as an older fan, rather than this being like my original experience. So, like with all things, I'm always going to start off with the positives. Here's the positives. I think that it's fantastic to have a community online of Black anime fans. I know for me, back in the day, back in my old days, like when I was modding for Gendo and stuff, my blackness really was very ancillary to my anime journey. If anything, because of anime, it sort of fueled this cultural abandonment that I had as an African American. So anime kind of became a way for me to hide my blackness, especially online. So a lot of my usernames and everything were like ethnically ambiguous and stuff like that. Because at that point, in those older days of the internet, like race really did not matter. We were all just screen names and avatars. So it was weird to kind of come into something like Black Annie Twitter where your blackness is so part of your fandom, because it was interesting to me to realize how many of us were of colors. Like when I started meeting my Gendo friends and stuff like that online, like how many of us were people of color as opposed to everyone kind of assuming this white default on each other. So that was fascinating to me, and I'm so in love with the fact that fans nowadays don't have to hide their race and still be fans, because there was this kind of perception for a while ago that that wasn't something that people of color did. Like nerd stuff is not stuff that people of color did. The biggest air quotes that I can give you, because that's just clearly not true. Like that's just apparently not true. So having that community I think is amazing. And it's empowering to see Black cosplayers and Black comic creators, to see all of us just living our Wakanda excellence. I think is just great. It's truly inspiring, and I've met some fantastic people in this process. I've met some fantastic people in this community. I've made some connections that I'll cherish for the rest of my living days. um with that, I do have some thoughts that may be perceived as negative, but I'm going to preface them in a way that hopefully explains kind of how I'm feeling. I think one of the downsides that I do see a lot is this kind of unwillingness to challenge each other. And I have to be really, really careful when I say this, because, and I posted this on Twitter a little while ago, and this is sort of what I was referring to when I said the best thing that y'all can do is challenge me, because there's a lot of talk about gatekeeping and people giving Black cosplayers a hard time, and that's true. Black cosplay is a fraught endeavor full of sexism and racism, and I get that and I respect that, and I've dealt with some of that. Not a lot, because I'm not a very good cosplayer, but I've dealt with some of that. So because of that, there is this kind of insular nature to Black Annie Twitter, where everything a Black person does is just great. And as a media critic, as a cosplayer, as someone with an aesthetic, that's just not true. That's not true for anyone. That's not true for white cosplayers. That's not true for Hispanic cosplayers. That's not true for anything. Objectively, some people are not going to be as good, and that's okay. But there's this weird circling of the wagons around each other that I just don't find constructive. Uh, Here's where I'm gonna sound really shady. On Black Annie Twitter, I've seen some costumes that to me are that was a choice. that was a decision that was made. I'm checking my time because I'm trying to, like, not do this for too long. Okay, we're good. Like, there's just some choices that were made in some of these videos and, like, stuff like that, that I don't think are bad. It's just not how I would have gone. And to feel like I couldn't express that is frustrating, that kind of dissent would be partaken negatively, because I am someone with very strong opinions, but I'm not tactless. And, like, real talk, I could be shady and just keep a lot of that stuff to myself, and I have. Like, if there's something that I see that I'm not, like, super crazy about, yeah, I do think it's, like, super rude and disrespectful to, like, go comments on someone's stuff publicly. I don't like this. But just, like, the thought of, even if I was to, like, provide what I would think is a helpful critique, like, hey, if you need help, like, matching your foundation to your lace, let me help you, or, like, let someone help you. Like, that would be suppressed and seen as really, really negative. And that's frankly kind of scary and disappointing. And on the other end of that is the gatekeeping discussion, because especially as being a person of color, I've experienced a fair amount of gatekeeping. But, and if you've read my blog, you know this about me, I don't see gatekeeping inherently as negative. I think that the way it's used a lot as a tool is bad, but I don't think that inherently it's an evil, because here's the true tea. Gatekeeping made me a stronger fan. It did. Because when you have to Legends of the Hidden Temple through every comic book shop, you're gonna know your stuff. When people are clocking your cosplay and saying, hey, this wig doesn't match, or hey, this outfit isn't real, or like, that's not how this looks, you're going to be better. Now, I don't think that gatekeeping is, like, great, but I do think that in some places I'm stronger for being gatekept. Like, there's information about comics that I know now because I knew that I would have to be able to answer those questions. I knew that as soon as I walked into a comic book shop that I would be quizzed. So I just knew. I studied. I voraciously studied. And I get that there's room for casual fans and stuff like that. I get that there's room for casual cosplay. I support that and I get that. But criticism made me stronger. Having to know my stuff made me stronger. Having to look back and realize that anime is not something that started 10 years ago with Attack on Titan made me a stronger fan. So I hate making it an age thing, but it really does seem increasingly like an age thing. These younger fans on, like, Black Annie Twitter who were just like, Demon Slayer's the best anime ever, and it's like, but how? Because there's really no one who's, this might be a wrong word, but there's no one challenging them. There's no one saying, hey, maybe look back at anime literally 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Let's get crazy and go 20 years ago. Because I know as soon as I decided that anime was more than just a hobby for me, I went back. Now, I can't say that I like all of the older series. Like, you probably couldn't pay me to watch Outlaw Star again. I'm not saying it's bad, just not my thing. But as soon as I decided that anime was more than just, like, a passing hobby for me, I went back and I studied it. I went back and I looked at the older series. And I just don't see that. And, like, I think Black Annie Twitter encapsulates this kind of, like, lack of kind of checking just run amok, because I feel like we can't have conversations about things. And this leads into another con, which is uh in this desire to support Black media and Black people, there is this kind of reduction of dissent. So there's anime that I'm afraid to watch because if I don't like it, I might get dragged because I'm not being as supportive as I should be to Black anime representation. Because, and again, if you've read my blog, I'm a little hot and cold about demanding representation from anime. Like, I'm really hot and cold on that. So I'm a little bit like, I'm a kind of scared. Like, there's some series that I'm, like, afraid of starting because I don't want to be like that person who isn't supporting other Black creators and like Black excellence, I don't want to be that person. I'm not ready to be that person. So that's a weird position to be in, where it's this like fear rather than just, hey, maybe I didn't like that. Because it's not, sometimes you cannot like things and the reason not be racism. Like, you are allowed to not like things and the reason not be because, oh, well, you don't like Black people. Like, no, that's not the answer. That's that's something that is a new feeling for me, is this concern that I'm like betraying a community because I might not like something. Another con that I have, I'm gonna go ahead and just say it. The Black anti-Twitter throw on the N-word a lot, and I'm not crazy about that. TBH, I wouldn't be crazy about that in any like case, but I'm definitely not crazy about it, like on Twitter that much. It's a lot, and I get it. For some people, it is like reclaiming this slur, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Um, but yeah, those are some thoughts about Black anti-Twitter. If y'all were hoping for this to be like really, really shady and stuff like that, you're not gonna get that from me. Unless you read my blog, and then I guess I kind of am. This was really just an exercise in kind of working out some of those feelings that I've had, because I'm proud to be a part of this community. Like, I'm proud to say that, like, I'm a Black creator who is also an anime fan, who is also a panelist, who is also a cosplayer. But I feel like just this lack of ability to have conversation because we're all trying to support each other is just not constructive. Like, I am so much stronger for every person who ever told me that like my wig was on like wrong and stuff like that. I'm so much stronger for every dumb guy in a comic book shop who decided that I needed to be quizzed on the order that all the Robins were in Batman. I'm a better fan for it. And I just think that we should be able to express what we're feeling and what we're thinking about stuff when it comes to being online, and you can do so without it being racist. Like, because caveat, there's a portion of me that gets it. There is this kind of like circling of the wagons because you don't want to open that door for other people. You don't want to open up the door because, you or me as a person of color comment on another person of color, and then that could give someone else who isn't a person of color, like, oh, well, you're right, I don't like this costume. Okay, well, no, then it goes from two people in the community to someone on the outside criticizing. So I get it. Like, there is this desire to kind of like not allow any room for outside interference. I get and respect that, but dissent is just squashed so aggressively that it feels like everyone's just in a circle, like singing church music sometimes. Like, not everyone is great. Some choices are bad. And I said this desperately on Twitter, like, if I look rough, tell me. Like, if you guys see this video and you're like, Amanda, you're looking rough, just say it, because I can take it. I probably do look a little bit rough, but like, I'm better for that than not being told, hey, you look rough, how can we help you? Or how can you help yourself be better next time? That is constructive, kind of regardless of who it comes from. And I've learned, air quotes, because I'm still kind of learning, when criticism is constructive and when it is just kind of rooted in like racism and misogyny. That does take time, and it's something that I'm still kind of evolving and trying to figure out. But it's also, I don't know, this might be the writer in me, and this might be like the film critic in me, I guess, is in those moments, there's always like a kernel of truth. That somewhere buried in that is true. I'm gonna tell a famous panel story for me, that there was someone who negatively reviewed me and said that I swore a lot. And they said in their review that every time I swore, it took them out of the panel. And then I got really upset. I was really defensive. I was like, oh, well, this guy doesn't like, that I'm a Black woman who's speaking. And it's like, no, when you really get down to it, this person had a good point. During that panel, I swore a lot. That's valid. Now, how that point got across was not the best. That was not the best wording to get to an actual valid point, which during that panel, I did swear a lot. So, this kind of like fear of criticism is weird to me because that's kind of what society sometimes needs to do. Like that's what communities do. Is we don't get better by just endlessly supporting each other. We get better by critique and course correction and learning. Now, doing so tactfully and respectfully. Because, like, again, I would never, like, comment on someone's stuff publicly, like, I don't like this outfit. Like, that's just rude. Like, that's not critique or criticism. But, like, yeah, if I'm looking super rough, I would hope that one of you would say something. I would expect one of you to say something if I'm looking, like, extra hashtag rough. So, I don't know. It's just a weird kind of thing. I still love it. Like, it's, at the end of the day, there's still more positive than negative, and I'm so happy to be a part of this community. Very much so. But it didn't feel right to not talk about some of those places that I kind of have some contention. So, those are my thoughts on Black Anime Twitter. I hope for tactful and polite discussion in the comments below. Thank you all so much for viewing, and I'm gonna work on doing more videos like this. Apparently, you people want to see my face. Shocking to me. So, I will work on doing more videos like this. But thank you for the most part for sticking with me. Bye, guys.